Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. 1 year ago today, Jeffrey Epstein allegedly took his own life in a jail cell at the MCC. Since his death, there has been tremendous fallout. We have seen some of the biggest people in the world of finance have to take a step back from their careers. We have seen men like Les Wexner forced out of positions that not only they had been in for decades, but forced out of positions that were from companies that they have created. We have seen Prince Andrew and his spectacular fall from grace. And we have seen Ghislaine Maxwell get arrested and put behind bars. And that's just a little bit of what has happened since Jeffrey Epstein has died. It's safe to say that there has been plenty going on in the year since Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in that jail cell. Today's article is from the Daily News, and the headline is, Jeffrey Epstein hanged himself 1 year ago, allegedly, setting off a wave of conspiracy theories and celebrity denials. The author of this article is Stephen Rex Brown. When Jeffrey Epstein took his life in a jail cell 1 year ago, allegedly, dozens of his survivors feared their hope for justice died with him. And I remember when Epstein died. I remember that day, and that was the day where I actually began the journey of this podcast, where I really started to dig in and start to look a little bit deeper behind the curtain to see what was really going on here. And it became an avalanche. A little piece of research avalanched into a gigantic ball, and here we are, a year later, and pounding away. The registered sex offender, who made a mockery of the legal process since at least 2007, way before that, undermined the law one last time. Using orange sheets tied to the railing of a bunk bed in his cell, Epstein hanged himself, allegedly, snapping a bone in his neck in 3 places. And remember, when this all happened and Dr. Bodden did the autopsy check and went over the medical examiner's work, he came to an absolutely different finding. According to Dr. Bodden, this was not somebody who hanged himself. This was somebody who was murdered. The immediate reaction was disappointment. She and I wanted him alive and well, prepared to face justice in a courtroom, said attorney Dan Kaiser, who represents Epstein accuser Jennifer Araz. She felt deprived of the opportunity when he died. The anniversary has resurrected those feelings. I can only imagine. I can only imagine what it feels like, the sort of gut punch it is, after you have been searching for justice for all of these years, the way the survivors were, only to have it slip right through your fingers because the Department of Corrections and the Department of Justice is bad at their jobs. Not only were these girls victimized when Epstein abused them, but then the system victimized them once again by not being able to secure and safeguard one of the most high-profile prisoners in the prison system. So yeah, I could see how there could be a range of emotions from the survivors on a day like today. Epstein was accused of running an elaborate underage sex trafficking scheme in which victims were lured into giving him massages that devolved into a routine of sexual abuse. He paid survivors to bring in new underage girls, maintaining a steady stream of young lives for him to destroy, prosecutors said. Lawsuits against his estate allege that defiling his victims was part of his sick thrill, and we've heard that a lot, right? We know that he got off on the power. He got off on the control, and he most certainly got off on making people uncomfortable. And the survivors have all come out and said it. We've heard it from other various sources, but Jeffrey Epstein was a very, very, very sick individual, and somebody that the only cure for what ailed him was chemical castration. Epstein's suicide, allegedly, the night between August 9th and 10th, capped a frenzy of shocking revelations that emerged seemingly every day after his arrest the month prior for sex trafficking minors in the early 2000s. When he died, it was a feeding frenzy, right? There were all sorts of stories. We didn't know what's true, what isn't true. It was a lot of stuff that came out right after Epstein's death, and it was a bunch of information to soak in. Prosecutors said they found a stash of nude photographs of underage girls in the fiend's $77 million Upper East Side mansion. The feds cracked a safe belonging to Epstein, 66, and found a foreign passport with a fake name and his photo, diamonds, and piles of cash. The passport, issued in the 1980s, listed Epstein's residence as Saudi Arabia. He owned palatial retreats in Palm Beach, New Mexico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. The whole passport thing is insane, right? The fact that Jeffrey Epstein had a passport that listed him being a resident in Saudi Arabia has always been mind-boggling to me. And then the excuse that his lawyers used was, oh, it's because he's Jewish and he doesn't want to be on a hijacked plane, so he has this different identity. What? So that whole identity thing really reeks of Jeffrey Epstein having a helping hand within the government, and it goes a long way to add credence to Jeffrey Epstein being run as an asset. A year after his death, it's disappointing that we still don't have more answers to how it was that Jeffrey Epstein was allowed to die while in custody, or how he was able to manipulate the criminal justice system to evade real punishment for decades-long crimes, Epstein survivor Teresa Helm said. It is disappointing. We don't have any answers at all. We have Bill Barr saying that he saw some video. I don't believe any of that nonsense. I need to see it with my own eyes at this point. That nobody went into the cell. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. If that's the case, and you're so worried about conspiracy theories, release the video. Hell, if the Pentagon's releasing video of alleged aliens, then I think that they can release this video of Jeffrey Epstein's cell and let us see for ourselves if anybody went in there that night. But I will tell you this, the Department of Justice and the Department of Corrections are an embarrassment. The way they've conducted themselves throughout this whole entire thing is an absolute disgrace. The government let down Epstein survivors yet again. In 2007, then Southern Florida U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta negotiated a sweetheart non-prosecution agreement with Epstein that allowed him to plead guilty to charges of procuring a minor for prostitution and serve a mere 13 months in a Palm Beach County jail. And again, while Acosta deserves his fair share of criticism here, everybody needs to understand how this works. Acosta wasn't the only one who signs off on something like this. Acosta isn't the only one that makes that decision. That goes all the way up top. You think that the Department of Justice just signs off on something like this? Or the federal prosecutor's office just signs off on something like this? No way. This had to get kicked up top, and his bosses, his superiors, were the ones who okayed this deal. So all of those people who were involved, every one of them needs to be put on blast. Acosta would later resign as President Trump's labor secretary as outrage mounted that he kept survivors in the dark about the outrageous terms of the deal. And as we talked about the other day, that deal itself is being challenged right now in the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. And the whole entire circuit of judges is going to sit in on it, and they're going to make a ruling. And I have a funny feeling that that ruling is going to be very favorable. Just a feeling I have, no evidence leading me there or anything like that. But with the way things are going and how impassioned the dissent was from Judge Hull added to that with the amicus briefs, and I think that the 11th Circuit is going to have some bad news for the federal government. Blame fell on the overworked, underfunded Bureau of Prison staff at the dysfunctional Metropolitan Correctional Center in Lower Manhattan for Epstein's shocking alleged suicide. Arose is disappointed and angry at the Bureau of Prisons for not doing its job in protecting his welfare, Kaiser said. The Queenswoman, who claims Epstein abused her at his Upper East Side mansion when she was 15, had wanted him alive to face criminal charges and her own civil lawsuit. And I'll tell you what, Jennifer, we all share your disappointment. We pay a bunch of money in taxes, yearly, daily, every moment of our lives, it seems like. And we expect basic functions of the government to be able to function correctly. And when it comes to holding somebody like Jeffrey Epstein and making sure that they don't hurt themselves or that they don't get hurt, it should be top priority for every single person in that jail. And the fact that just the two lowly jail guards are the ones that are holding the bag here, that are left holding the hot potato, well, that's not going to fly. And there needs to be more answers to the questions people have. Because how could just those two guards be in trouble? What about their boss? What about their boss's boss? What about the guy who was on charge watching the whole entire jail that night? No responsibility to their superiors? Just the two lowly guards get felony charges here? Nobody else? The death rocked the Justice Department and the MCC, which holds some of the country's highest profile inmates. Two correctional officers, Tova Noel and Michael Thomas, are accused of falsifying records, sleeping on the job, and shopping online as Epstein hatched his final plan. They've pleaded not guilty. Attorney General William Barr pledged that the investigation into Epstein's sex trafficking would continue. Any co-conspirator should not rest easy, Barr said shortly after the pervert's death. That promise would prove true on July 2nd with the arrest of Epstein's alleged chief enabler, co-conspirator, fellow child molester, general all-around scumbag, Ghislaine Maxwell, 58. The recent arrest of Ghislaine Maxwell and the continued investigation by the Justice Department gives us, the survivors, hope that justice will be served and the crimes that were committed will no longer go ignored, said Helm. She has sued Epstein's estate, claiming the sadist abused her in 2002 after hiring her at the age of 22 as a traveling masseuse. Another story of a traveling masseuse being abused by Epstein. Another story of a young, aspiring massage therapist being brought into Jeffrey Epstein's orbit to be abused and raped and you name it. This is the same group of people, mind you, that Alan Dershowitz got a massage from. It was an older woman, according to Dershowitz. But let's remember all of the circumstantial evidence that we have at our fingertips. Let's remember what massage means to Jeffrey Epstein. And then let's all turn our eyes to douchey Dershowitz and wait for our explanation. During the nearly 1 year between the arrest of Epstein and Maxwell, conspiracy theories blew up, claiming he didn't kill himself. You know what? I take umbrage with that. I don't think it's a conspiracy theory to ask questions when you have not been provided with any evidence. So we're just supposed to listen to Barr, what he has to say, without him providing any evidence? Since when is that a good idea? Have we learned nothing throughout this whole entire journey we've been on? I don't want any more words about this. I want to see some evidence. If Jeffrey Epstein did kill himself, then let us see the video that proves nobody went into that cell. That's not some kind of national security information. That's information that the public should have. We should all be able to see it, and we should know for a fact what occurred in that jail that night. But Barr coming out and trying to gaslight us with his narrative, that's not going to be accepted by me, and I highly doubt it's going to be accepted by any of you. How could the Bureau of Prisons have allowed his suicide, allegedly, to occur, especially when he had attempted suicide only weeks prior, allegedly as well? Now remember, he was in a jail cell with Nicholas Tartaglione when that first alleged suicide attempt occurred. And the funny thing about that Nicholas Tartaglione, guys, is my uncle in New York wasn't really following the Jeffrey Epstein case, but he happened to check out an article about Tartaglione, and he called me, and long story short, my uncle knows the Tartaglione family, and he used to hang out when they were kids with Tartaglione's brother. They used to call him Tat Tat. So it was pretty funny when I got that phone call from my uncle. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And it's just crazy to think that they would have us believe that Jeffrey Epstein was in a jail cell with somebody like Nicholas Tartaglione, who is up for 3-4 murders, and you think it's a good idea to put a blue-collar child molester, abuser, rapist of women in a cell with somebody like that? Look, Tartaglione was an ex-cop, so he was going to have a rough time on the yard one way or the other. But imagine the credibility he would have had. Imagine what it would have been like for him when he stepped out onto that yard if he was the one who hurt Jeffrey Epstein. That would automatically get him yard cred right off the bat and help him out with his cop issue. So it's definitely not beyond the realm of possibility that Tartaglione assaulted Jeffrey Epstein. And in fact, that is what the original story said. So I don't know whose idea it was to put Tartaglione in that jail cell with Jeffrey Epstein, but I will tell you this: that person needs to lose their job. Epstein signed a will 2 days before his death, moving his $630 million fortune into a trust. Survivors' attorneys say the move makes it harder for them to recover money for his abuse or determine the extent of his wealth. Of course, and that's just the wealth that's on the books, too. We all know that this guy had money buried everywhere. That's how these money launderers work. That's how these financial criminals work. There is money in hidey holes all over the place. The woman who considered herself Epstein's girlfriend, Karna Shuliak, was shocked by his suicide, allegedly. She was the last person to speak with him on the phone, a source told the Daily News in March. When she hung up the phone, she was not under the impression Epstein was suicidal, the source said. That's been the report from multiple people. Doug Schoen, a lawyer who was going to take Jeffrey Epstein's case and help out, said the same exact thing. We went over that article months ago. Everybody who talked to him said he was not suicidal. And then all of a sudden, he just happens to try and commit suicide once while he's in the jail cell with a gigantic juiced-up gorilla. And then he finally, quote-unquote, succeeds in committing suicide on his own after being on suicide watch. Yeah, sorry, the narrative is just not adding up. Epstein attorney Reed Weingarten said in a Manhattan federal court hearing that the defense team did not see a despairing, despondent, suicidal person during their final meetings. Papers in a civil suit featuring allegations against many of Epstein's famous friends were unsealed on August 9th, the day before jail staff found him hanging. Those documents, which continue to be unsealed, featured allegations that former President Bill Clinton was on Epstein's island. British royal Prince Andrew is also named in the papers, along with many others, including billionaire financier Glenn Dubin, who was directly implicated by Virginia of abusing her, French model scout Jean-Luc Brunel, also directly implicated in abusing Virginia, former New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson, another person directly implicated in abusing Virginia, and the owner of a large hotel chain, Pritzker, another person directly implicated. And MIT scientist Marvin Minsky, oh, another person directly implicated. All of those people that we just talked about are directly implicated of partaking in the abuse of these trafficked women while they were under Jeffrey Epstein's spell. Prominent men who associated with Epstein have issued denials to varying degrees of success. Clinton has said he never set foot on Epstein's island. He's a liar. All right, Bill Clinton is an atrocious liar, and I'll tell you what, it's going to be double barrels for him soon. I'm going to do a series on Bill Clinton real soon because I'm tired of hearing about his denials, and I am also tired of hearing people trying to defend him. Bill Clinton is an absolute predator, a piece of garbage, okay? And he needs to be called out for his lies. Epstein's former attorney, Alan, I kept my underpants on Dershowitz, perhaps overshared, saying that he kept his underwear on during a massage and repeatedly insisting he's only had sex with his wife since he first met Epstein. What? Prince Andrew's denial was a royal mess. The prince has long been dogged by accusations he sexually abused Epstein's survivor, Virginia Roberts, when she was 17. Epstein quite obviously conducted himself in a manner unbecoming, Andrew said in a BBC interview last year. Roberts claimed Andrew was sweating all over her on the dance floor around 2001. Andrew, bizarrely, insisted that wasn't possible. There's a slight problem with the sweating because I have a peculiar medical condition, which is that I don't sweat, or I didn't sweat at the time, Andrew said. I remember watching this interview and asking myself, did this moron really just say that? Is he really trying to use some kind of non-sweating condition as an alibi? Watching him go down in flames while Emily Maitlis asked him questions was absolutely glorious, and I cannot wait for Bill Clinton to have his day. The awkward interview and his pledge to cooperate with any investigation resulted in an ongoing effort through diplomatic channels to get him to sit down with Manhattan federal prosecutors. The indictment of Noel and Thomas provides a powerful rebuttal of Epstein conspiracy theories through a minute-by-minute description of Epstein's final hours. What? You mean the scapegoating of these two? It doesn't provide a powerful rebuttal at all. We've destroyed that narrative 100 times over here. And I'm sure we'll have to destroy it 100 times more. The real conspiracy theory here, the real question here, is how was somebody like Epstein allowed to die in the custody of the Department of Corrections? Meanwhile, Epstein accusers have the choice to participate in an out-of-court claims program designed by the administrator of the September 11th Victim Compensation Fund. So far, more than 25 claims have been submitted, according to a spokesman for the program that is independent from Epstein's estate. Accusers anxiously follow Maxwell's case, hoping she does not suffer the same fate as Epstein. So, just a second ago, he was saying that the suicide's a conspiracy theory, blah, 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 blah. But now he's saying that we're hoping that she does not suffer the same fate as Epstein? Yeah, I highly doubt that it would be a coincidence if she suffered the same fate, right? I guess people would still be calling it a conspiracy theory if something happens to Ghislaine Maxwell. Just a bad job by the Department of Corrections. Nothing to see here, folks. Keep on moving. The alleged madam, co-conspirator, child abuser, has pleaded not guilty to charges of grooming underage girls for Epstein's sexual abuse in the mid-1990s. The British socialite, child abuser, all-around scumbag, allegedly played a critical role in Epstein's scheme, normalizing his hypersexualized perverse lifestyle that derailed perhaps hundreds of girls' lives. Maxwell, Epstein's alleged right-hand woman, understood the inner workings of his operation and many of the men who participated. Survivors' attorneys say, yeah, she knew the inner workings because she helped set them up. She helped put the parameters in place and put down the blueprint for them to follow. She had a leadership role and she needs to be charged with RICO yesterday. Jeffrey Epstein's death, regardless of the circumstances, robbed his survivors of the chance to confront him in court. What we need to remember about Epstein is not how he died, but the terrible damage he and his cohorts did to countless young girls when he was alive. And by remembering, commit ourselves to bringing justice to his cohorts and enablers and never again tolerating such abuse, said attorney David Boies, who represents some Epstein accusers. He's right about that, folks. He is right about that. It's time for all of these people who were involved to get their just desserts. It is time for the long arm of the law to reach out and touch them. These enablers, these participants, and those who protected them need to understand that their days of hiding in the shadows and living their beautiful, pampered lives are now at a close. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All of the links that pertain to this article can be found in the description box. To everybody who has donated to the GoFundMe, thank you very much. All right, everybody, I'll be back later on, and we'll have the daily drop, and we'll get it going. I hope everybody enjoys their Sunday, and until then, see you later.